picture of everybody out here, and so swallow your food real quick. Okay. We're gonna do the throw your hands up like you're on a roller coaster. Yay! And everybody said like user experience, yay! Ah, that was fun, wasn't it? All right, so I'm Dan Terpstra. We are doing a very strange thing by joining up with the Midwest User Experience Conference or event, whatever we want to call this. This is very exciting to us because totally different group of people we normally don't get to see. But we're starting off today with Alaina Kraus. She is from Owasso, which you may have passed driving down I-69 toward Detroit. May have stopped for a bathroom break or something like that. She works at a software company, where she focuses on user experience. That's crazy, isn't it? She has a background in nonprofits, and actually, no joke, she is a thespian and a writer, and she's going to discuss design in the heart of the community. So, next, Alaina.
One of the things that I do when I'm not doing UX, even though all of you know that once you do UX everywhere. So I'm also heavily involved in our Downtown Development Association and Main Street program. I live right downtown in Owasso. So that's part of where this talk comes from for me, is that I've been working with this group for about 4 years. So because I only have 400 seconds and this is supposed to be a 45-minute talk, we're going to define some definitions to start out so that we're all on the same page. So the first one that I want to make sure we're on the same page is design, because we English speakers like to take one word and give it about 20 different meanings. So when I talk about design, I actually mean going back to the Latin of designating something, which the definition that I liked the best of those I looked at was purpose, planning, or intention that exists or is thought to exist behind an action, fact, or material object. So it's not making something pretty in terms of design, but actually doing something. I'm talking about the community where we actually know each other, where we're working together towards something, where we have a deeper relationship than just me waving at my neighbors, because that's totally what I do. I don't really know them that well. So that's the type of community that I'm referencing when I'm talking about designing community. So the first thing is that your space has a voice. When we're working with Downtown Development Association, one of the things that we talk about is what is our space saying about us and what are we saying about our space. Those two things have a strong relationship. And Owasso is a very historic community. So if we tried to come in and say, hey, we're super modern, it wouldn't really work for us because that's not one of our big selling points. We have this awesome history and we need to incorporate it into everything we do when we're both working with our space and talking about our space and community. So the next thing is to leave space for interaction. When I think of this, I think of white space. You know, when you're designing something in terms of actually making a layout of something, you have that white space so that people can get to the things that they need to get to. Or earlier this summer I heard Jared Spool talk, and he talked about designing in the gaps between activities, and that's what makes experiences. So that's kind of what I think of with this section. And earlier this summer, I got to go to the Grand Traverse City-State Hospital, which was an asylum built in 1885. It is not an asylum like you think of here in the middle of Halloween. The original director actually believed that beauty was therapy, so he designed spaces for interactions within this building. It's really awesome if you ever get to go see it, but there are wide hallways and big grassy expanses that community could actually develop among the patients there. And then here in Owasso, in the modern age, we just added something called the Fountain Park. When I first moved to Owasso 6.5 years ago, I never saw people downtown. Well, they turned part of our parking lot into this Fountain Park, and I actually see people going down, hanging out, interacting with each other. We also have an eating space, which is a reclaimed alleyway, and now people will go and they'll take their food down there and they'll talk amongst each other. So finding those spaces where people can connect that they may not otherwise. So the next one is start small, but plan for big. One of the biggest pitfalls that you'll see when people start planning either a business, they're trying to get a group started, is they either plan for a small amount of people and get a ton, or they plan for an explosion of growth and then they fall apart because that doesn't happen. So one of the best examples that I thought of with this is actually an online community. It's international, called NaNoWriMo. Some of you might be familiar with it. So when NaNoWriMo started, there were 21 people the first year. The third year, there were 5,000, which was over 50 times more than the year previous. And it crashed everything. The founder refers to it as a cataclysmic series of events. They obviously got over it. There's now over 30,000 people a year. But because they weren't planning for that, they ran into a lot of issues. So it's bigger than just you. Another online community that was kind of an accidental community is called Nerd Fighters. And they're geeks. Some of you are probably familiar with them. And they started as an experiment between two brothers. And there is an awesome quote about community that I don't have time to tell you, but if you go to their website, you can find it pretty easily on their About section. And the one brother, John Green, is talking about how it's not just about us anymore. It started as something between the two of us, but it's about this much larger community now, and we need to remember that in the things that we're doing with it. So the last one is strike easy from your vocabulary. If you're working with a community, it's not going to be easy. It requires care, it requires work, and you're probably going to get really frustrated at some point in the midst of it. There's a quote from the Main Street documentation that says, "There's no formula, no magic answers, or easy solutions. You have to put in the hard work and effort." And one of the examples of this is actually where the inspiration for the talk came for me, is a place called Motor City Java House. And Alicia George spent 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears, and dreams trying to bring this place into existence. It's in a neighborhood called Brightmoor, which is not the worst neighborhood outside of Owasso, but it's also not the best neighborhood outside of Owasso, or not Owasso, I mean Detroit. And she finally brought this coffee house into existence, despite all of the adversities that she went through. And around it, the community has gathered together. You drive through that one section, and you see a vibrant group of people there. And part of it is that they've taken this whole block. The section that's outlined in red is actually all part of the Motor City Java House, but they also have a space where people can come in and watch movies, they can have church services, they have a community garden in there, and this is all part of her vision for her community. And it's really cool if you get to see it, although if you're not used to the area, it might be a little frightening to get there. So thank you very much. If you have any questions or anything like that, here's my contact information, or you can actually look me up on the Midwest UX website, and I will get these on SlideShare as well. So thank you again.